Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 371 narrated Abdul Aziz Anas said, when Allah's Messenger invaded Kabar, we offered the Fajr prayer there early in the morning when it was still dark. The Prophet rode in Abu Talha rode too, and I was riding behind Abu Talha. The Prophet passed through the lane of Kabar quickly, and my knee was touching the thigh of the Prophet. He uncovered his thigh, and I saw the whiteness of the thigh of the Prophet. When he entered the town, he said, Allahu Akbar. Kabar is ruined. Whenever we approach near a hostile nation to fight, then evil will be the morning of those who have been warned. He repeated this thrice. The people came out for their jobs, and some of them said, Muhammad has come. Some of our companions added, with his army. We conquered Kabar, took the captives, and the booty was collected. He came and said, O Allah's Prophet, give me a slave girl from the captives. The Prophet said, go and take any slave girl. He took Safiya bint Hayy. A man came to the Prophet and said, O Allah's Messenger, you gave Safiya bint Hayy to Dihya, and she is the chief mistress of the tribes of Quraydah and Nadir, and she benefits none but you. So the Prophet said, bring him along with her. So Dihya came with her, and when the Prophet saw her, he said to Dihya, take any slave girl other than her from the captives. Anas added, the Prophet then manumitted her and married her. Thabit asked Anas, O Abu Hamza, what did the Prophet pay her as mar? He said, herself was her mar, for he manumitted her and then married her. Anas added, while on the way, Sulaim dressed her for marriage ceremony, and at night she sent her as a bride to the Prophet. So the Prophet was a bridegroom, and he said, whoever has anything, food, should bring it. He spread out a leather sheet for the food, and some brought dates and others cooking butter. I think he, Anas, mentioned a sawak. So they prepared a dish of hadees, a kind of meal. And that was walima, the marriage banquet of Allah's Messenger. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 372 narrated Aisha, Allah's Messenger, used to offer the Fajr prayer, and some believing women covered with their veil and sheets used to attend the Fajr prayer with him, and then they would return to their homes unrecognized. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 373 narrated Aisha, the Prophet prayed in a kamisa, a square garment, having marks. During the prayer, he looked at its marks. So when he finished the prayer, he said, take this kamisa of mine to Abu Jam, and get me his Bajaniya, a woolen garment without marks, as it, the kamisa, has diverted my attention from the prayer. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet said, I was looking at its kamisa's marks during the prayers, and I was afraid that it may put me in trial by taking away my attention. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 374 narrated Anas, Aisha had a kiram, a thin marked woolen curtain, with which she had screened one side of her home. The Prophet said, take away this kiram of yours, as its pictures are still displayed in front of me during my prayer, that is, they divert my attention from the prayer. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 375 narrated Uqba bin Amir, the Prophet was given a silken faru as a present. He wore it while praying. When he had finished his prayer, he took it off violently as if with a strong aversion to it and said, it is not the dress of Allah-fearing pious people. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 376 narrated Abu Haifa, I saw Allah's Messenger in a red leather tent, and I saw Bilal taking the remaining water with which the Prophet had performed ablution. I saw the people taking the utilized water impatiently, and whoever got some of it rubbed it on his body, and those who could not get any took the moisture from the other's hands. Then I saw Bilal carrying a short spear or stick, which he planted in the ground. The Prophet came out tucking up his red cloak, and led the people in prayer and offered 2 rakat, facing the Kaaba, taking a short spear or stick as his sutra for his prayer. I saw the people and animals passing in front of him beyond the stick. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 377 narrated Abu Hazim, Sahl bin Said was asked about the Prophet's pulpit as to what thing it was made of. Sahl replied, none remains alive amongst the people who knows about it better than I. It was made of tamarisk, wood of the forest. So-and-so, the slave of so-and-so, prepared it for Allah's Messenger. When it was constructed in place in the mosque, Allah's Messenger stood on it facing the Qibla and said Allahu Akbar, and the people stood behind him and led the people in prayer. He recited and bowed, and the people bowed behind him. Then he raised his head and stepped back, got down and prostrated on the ground, and then he again ascended the pulpit, recited, bowed, raised his head and stepped back, got down and prostrated on the ground. So, this is what I know about the pulpit. Ahmad bin Hanbal said, as the Prophet was at a higher level than the people, there is no harm according to the above-mentioned hadith if the Imam is at a higher level than his followers during the prayers. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 378 narrated Anas bin Malik, once Allah's messenger, fell off a horse and his leg or shoulder got injured. He swore that he would not go to his wives for 1 month, and he stayed in a mashruba attic room, having stairs made of date palm trunks. So his companions came to visit him, and he led them in prayer sitting, whereas his companions were standing. When he finished the prayer, he said, Imam is meant to be followed, so when he says Allahu Akbar, say Allahu Akbar, and when he bows, bow, and when he prostrates, prostrate, and if he prays standing, pray, standing. After the 29th day the Prophet came down from the attic room, and the people asked him, O Allah's Messenger, you swore that you will not go to your wives for 1 month. He said, the month is 29 days. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 379 narrates Abdullah bin Shaddad, Maymuna said, Allah's Messenger was praying while I was in my menses, sitting beside him, and sometimes his clothes would touch me during his prostration. Maymuna added, he prayed on a kumra, a small mat sufficient just for the face and the hands, while prostrating during prayers. Sahieh Eal-Bukhari 380 narrated Ishaq, Anas bin Malik said, my grandmother Mulaika invited Allah's Messenger for a meal which she herself had prepared. He ate from it and said, get up. I will lead you in the prayer. Anas added, I took my harsir, washed it with water as it had become dark because of long use, and Allah's Messenger stood on it. The orphan, Damira or Ra, and I aligned behind him, and the old lady, Mulaika, stood behind us. Allah's Messenger led us in the prayer and offered 2 rakat and then left.